All right, hello everyone. We are currently at T plus 9 hours, 8 minutes, 26 seconds, starting the clock now. Next procedure coming up is a, wouldn't you guess, a P-23. Um, kind of on par for Apollo 8. We'll be doing well, it'll be telling us to do a lot of these. Um, this is for an Earth landmark, and let me just show you guys something. Um, I actually have the overlay on already, which displays surface features, but because of our distance, we are unable to actually see the landmarks, like, GUI. And because of that, we're actually unable to ascertain a landmark. Of course, the real astronauts would have been perfectly fine with this. However, I don't have thousands of hours of geography training and staring at maps and things of that nature, as it would be different for every flight, and I, quite frankly, don't want to spend years training for every single Apollo flight that I fly. So we are actually going to skip those procedures which specify us to P-23 on an Earth or lunar landmark. However, what we can do is we can actually still use P-23 to sort of as a compromise. We can use P-23 to just get a look at the Earth anyways. So we can do that. It wants us to use star 15 on Earth landmark 10. I believe the register 2 is always the Earth landmark. Let me just take a look at that and see if that gives us an alarm. Pretty sure that's correct, though. Okay, we got attitude information. So we'll go ahead and go CMC auto. And let's proceed to accept. And the spacecraft should make its maneuver pointing at the Earth, assuming I remember the landmark input field correctly. This is the only mission that ever actually specified its use. So we'll see, and then we'll just take a quick look at the Earth. You hope Scott Manley watches this. Well, I highly doubt that he will. The man's busy with other stuff. Okay, yep. Optic 0 switch off. Manual speed low, and we can see the Earth perfectly in the sextant. So let's have a quick look here. Oh, wait, we can actually see landmark information. Well, isn't that okay? You know what, in that case, I can see Earth. Now we have to find Earth landmark. Oh, there's Earth landmark 10. Okay, I can actually see it. Well, would you look at that? I guess we're doing a P-23, just because I've never done something like this before. Let's go ahead and re-zero the optics. And mark. And then we will go SCS, and we'll go minimum impulse here. Let's get the landmark in view here. Didn't turn out too well, really. But what went wrong? Because re-entry is about as easy as baking a frozen pizza. I can't believe we can actually see these landmarks from here. This actually gets me excited, because on my previous installs, I was never actually able to see the Earth landmarks from this distance. So this gets me excited to actually perform this type of P23. I've never done it before. It is, however, significantly easier than the other P23 formats with the substellar point on the horizon. A significantly easier version of that P23. He never made it to TS, seriously? I'm shocked, actually. But, I mean, it's probably just more about the switches than the actual procedures themselves, I'd imagine. If you've never looked at Apollo before. Alright, let's turn that zero switch off. Okay, epilepsy warning for anyone that's got it. Please look away from the screen, and I'll give it another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Going to manual optics, and let's drive her to the landmark. And mark. Proceed. That was star 15 on Earth landmark 10. Proceed. Okay, well, I have no idea what I did wrong there. Oh, you know what? I know what I did wrong. Hold up. Verb 32, enter. Let's do verb 22, enter. 0, enter. For noun 89, we'll key in plus 28876, enter, minus 56292. For those that don't know, this landmark, I believe, in Apollo 8 was not a part of the guidance erasable, or a part of the guidance fixed memory, so we're going in and manually typing in the vectors, the XYZ vector for that actual landmark, and that'll get us a valid result. We won't need to maneuver the spacecraft, obviously. So we'll go ahead and bypass this maneuver. Enter. We'll take our calibration mark. Oops, excuse me, on CMC. It is refusing to take a calibration mark, possibly. Let's go manual, off of 0. Yeah, okay. We'll bypass the calibration mark. Enter. We'll go CMC. Okay, again, anyone with epilepsy, I'll give it another 5-second count. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark. I don't like that one. Let's take that again. Mark. Okay, we're clear. Proceed. 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 Okay, even worse. Yeah, I have no clue. In Earth landmark mode, it is literally as simple as just putting the star upon the landmark, but yeah, I don't know what is up with that, because we were very clearly looking at Earth landmark 10, so I'll have to ask around about that to see what I'm doing wrong. I mean, that is 10. Yeah. Huaymas is 11, so that's definitely 10. Eh, whatever. We won't worry about that. Look at that, Corpus Christi. We've got Mexico City. So we could just look at the Earth for a little bit and enjoy the good stuff. Two landmarks right next to each other. Yeah, like how do you ascertain the difference between these types of landmarks on this optics zoom? Couldn't tell you. But according to the MIT video I watched, you should just be able to put the star on the landmark. So unless these landmark coordinates are off slightly, because it maybe is assuming spherical cow here. Or, excuse me, not assuming spherical cow, because this is NASP, and the Earth is perfectly spherical in orbiter. There could be some differences here in the attitude information. I wouldn't be surprised about that, so. No, our state vector is good. 100%. She pulled us right in towards the Earth. And actually, we could prove that our state vector is good, too, with a ground track determination. But yeah, we got a good look at the Earth, so at least we got that going for us. Let's go ahead and enter her wide attitude deadband hold. Yeah, it's probably something I'm just doing weird. I couldn't tell you. I may have to have, like, the sextant also positioned perfectly on the landmark, like the sextant optic also positioned perfectly on the landmark, so that it's at a perfect 90-degree angle. But the MIT video I watched, their only thing was that you just had to put the star on the landmark. So I'll ask around and see what's up with that. But in the meantime, let's get a ground track determination at our Paracynthian here, and just see where we're at. You've only had 2 good marks in P23. I've had hundreds of good marks in P23, but they've all been the substellar point marks and not the landmark. Not the landmark marks. Hello, Witness Protection. Thank you for joining. If the flashing gets fixed, I can practice more. Yeah, it does cause a headache. That's why I only do it like 2 or 3 times, and I skip the rest. Eventually, possibly in open orbiter, they'll get to the point where mirror simulations will be a thing. Yeah, also landmark marks is weird. Also witness protection, if you're watching on the vertical, I do have a horizontal. So it should automatically be linked in the vertical video, but if you want to see the full image, feel free to go to that linked part and get the horizontal view. We are at 9 hours, 42 minutes, and 50 seconds into the mission, and the computer's integrating up to 69 hours and 10 minutes, so we are going to be waiting a little bit on that computer to finish its calculation. Probably 2 or 3 minutes, so we'll go ahead and do some light time dilation. Okay, it has us inserting into 57.9 nautical miles at our Paracynthian. So that looks good to me in terms of preliminary targeting after MCC1. This looks like a really good altitude to be at, so we've got a good trajectory going here. Earth is still shrinking, but she's not going to be shrinking as much now that we're so far away that that sort of optical illusion starts to take hold, and it just looks like it's a fixed size until we get so far away that it looks like a star. The moon is somewhere around the sun right now. But the part towards the Earth is almost completely dark in Apollo 8, so we will not be able to see the moon until LOI 1, unfortunately. Just the angle of the trajectory that we chose here. We'll get AC roll turned off and everything else to main A. I don't know why Apollo 8 all RCS is on main A. It's a very interesting and potentially hazardous configuration, but that is what the checklist demands of us, so that is what we will perform. Okay, current roll angle is 180, 70, 160, let's call that 166, 65, 66, let's call that 167. Would you look at that, 167's already plugged in for us. And then the yaw we're looking at is 242 degrees, and the pitch we're looking at is 242 degrees, and the yaw is 20 degrees. Learning a little bit with the gimbal lock, in my opinion. Proceed, and CMC auto. Proceed. So do you guys prefer the external view as much as possible? Obviously, internal because we'll be flying a lot of this, but do you prefer, like, when we're in auto maneuvers, for example, you prefer this, like, external view as much as possible, or you guys like the watching the instruments? I know some people like watching the instruments, so figured I'd ask. We're going to stabilize out as much as possible here. Well, you know, if some people like to look at the outside, you know, I'm not gonna... I'll be happy to. I like looking at the outside sometimes. But it can be, you know, a bit abrupt doing that all the time, so that's why. Okay, roll min imp. We are not past MCC6, so we will go ahead and just initiate 1 degree per second. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 clicks on min impulse. And there's our PTC setup. Very slow roll here for thermal control. And we'll get that wide deadband hold. Limit cycle off. I have issues with limit cycle expending too much RCS. In particular, especially when things start to weigh less. But here would be a good time to, hang on the outside, and just watch her as she goes. Watch that high gain antenna really struggle. Yeah, I hate Apollo 8's passive thermal control. It takes about 2 seconds to establish, but the drift is extremely significant compared to other missions. We'll be waiting on a P-37 block data containing our TLI plus 25 hours abort pad, as well as our flyby maneuver pad. Oh yeah, well that's also like a computer limitation. For example, if you are on a lower computing power situation with your orbiter install, time skipping with attitude control on, as particularly in auto maneuvers, can cause issues, especially with the lunar module. But I personally find that I can time skip up to X60, so 60 seconds per second, as long as I'm not attached to the S4B, not doing any auto maneuvers, and not in the lunar module. And then, of course, pulse code modulators have to be set to low. With pulse code modulator set to high, it's too much, like for the telemetry to be calculating, being sent over UDP, and for the game to be processing at the same time with the very complex attitude control logic and n-body physics. With the telemetry setup, it's just a little bit too much for the system to handle. Let's go ahead and perform our wastewater dump here. Well, if you're on CMC mode, limit cycle isn't going to do anything. Limit cycle is strictly a stabilization control system related maneuver, or related logic system. But if you're on a computer that's really struggling, with that processing speed, such that it becomes like a debilitation, you can activate kill rotation. So your RCS won't be firing at all while you're time skipping. It's seen as a cheat, but of course, if you have a really potato-y computer, then that's what it's there for. So feel free to use it. Okay, dump is down to circa 25%. We'll go ahead and terminate the dump. Hey, what's good? How's it going? We got our antenna good? Yes, we do have our antenna good. We're just falling towards the moon. Yeah, speaking of which, where is the moon? I know it's by the sun, but it's so hard to see right now. Um Celestial bodies. There's Mercury. Oh, there's the moon. Yeah. Yeah, really hard to see. Is that like an interesting angle? Did I make the orbiter UI bigger somehow? No, no. It could be a slight modification. If you're on the vertical, um, you should switch to the horizontal stream. It's linked in the should be linked anyways in the vertical stream. I just put up a vertical stream for, you know, advertisement purposes. But there could be slight modifications to the orbiter UI. Like I know, for example, all of this stuff, this is way larger than what would normally be displayed on the orbiter UI. I can actually show you the actual size of the UI real quick. So can pull that up. So the actual size would be, text size a little bit smaller than this here. And I got rid of these in the corner as well. They only pop up when I hover my mouse up to the top, so it was just getting in the way. People ask for me to turn it off, so I turn it off, but I still have it show up with the mouse so that I can check my my frame rates in my delta TF. So if delta TF starts to get, lower than 1 second, then I'll have to like jump back quick to real time. And you could see as I initiate time skip with that drop in the frame, the delta TF gets impacted slightly. But if I see significant delta TF problems, it's indicative of pulse code modulator being set to high. Then I'll know I forgot to switch that to low, and I'll go back to real time and I'll switch it to low before I see the drop in the frame rates that would start impacting spacecraft systems to that negative degree. Because I don't know if any of you have done it before, but if you've ever accidentally time skipped too hard with PCM bitrate high and all of a sudden you've got no fuel cells and your RCS is gone and your electrical power is gone, and yeah, it's a fun time. Time dilation can do some funny things. Oh, no worries, no worries. Ask away, ask away. Also, it's been a while since I've seen you here, Priority Right. It's good to see you back. To get this UI element, just right-click on the bar here up at the top, and then you'll see another window pop up with a section called Auxiliary Info Bars. On the left, you can set it to frame rate. I've also got render statistics and viewport info I could put up, but all I need is the frame rate. And then that's it. Yeah, do you remember when I accidentally time skipped too hard in the Apollo 11 during what was a mid-course correction 1, and it caused me to side lobe lock, but it didn't give any like program alarm problems that would indicate a side lobe. And then we did a really bad mid-course correction and had to go to eggs and manually fix it by eyesight and expend most of our RCS. Yeah, that was that's fun. Definitely time skipping something you've got to be careful about. So I learned my lesson. When the LEM is light, do not time skip. Just when you get to your mid-course, when you get to the start of TPI, just let it be. It's the hassle is certainly not worth the time saved with time skipping. I made it, but it was really ugly. Yeah. But I made it. So mission accomplished. Absolutely mission accomplished. Demo of Apollo 13 alignment. We'll be getting to Apollo 13 at some point. That's why I've been hammering down these RTCC missions. Where I personally think we are experienced enough to perform Apollo 13. There will be research required in the form of printing out paper checklists and looking at documents and stuff. Just because the checklists or whatever, everything Apollo 13 is very work in progress right now, as it's a really complicated mission to add to the simulator compared to the rest of them. So we're experienced enough to be able to do it, absolutely. And we're probably in a better spot than what Turi was in going into Apollo 13. Actually, we're not even probably, we're 100% in a better spot than what Turi was going into it with. But we still need that documentation to get printed, and quite frankly, I don't have the money for all of that jazz. So, when I get some extra budget, I'll go in and I'll start printing it out. And we will be doing an Apollo 13 run eventually. Going ahead and terminating PTC here. Boo, fly into the moon. You wish. That is a very real possibility, though. I haven't flown this mission on MCC in over a year. I always make my own burns, and so I have no idea what our trajectory looks like. I'm putting a full trust in mission control here. Full trust in mission control. Okay, we've got... No, this actually might not be enough stars visible. What happened to Rebel? You haven't seen him on in a while. Rebel actually either deleted his account or got copyright strike banned. He's got a new account, though. And I have seen it, but I have not subscribed to it given his... attitude issues, and not the ones that are in Roll, Pitch, and Yaw. It's just I don't like that particular environment. I find it to be a little bit toxic and uneducational. So I have not subscribed, but in the event that he does actually start pushing and progressing with learning, I am still following along. To make sure that when he does start actually learning again, then, you know, he'll have someone to ask questions to. But until then, I'm remaining a distant and passive viewer only. Rule of thumb, as long as you don't get every translunar mid-course, you're okay. Well, they definitely shouldn't have given you MCC3. Because... Or was it MCC2? See, all these missions are starting to meld together. I'm pretty sure it's MCC3, where they were like, absolutely don't burn this one because, like, we won't have the proper comm coverage or like issues with the high-speed radar or something like that that would prevent accurate monitoring and targeting for that burn. There was... It's in the ground rules in the Apollo 8 documentation. And so that's why I never burn MCC 2 or 3, whichever one Apollo 8 specified. Let's do a real quick alignment check here. I think that's pretty good. We probably won't be able to get it any better. Are we attempting one more P-23 in substellar point mode just to make up for the fact that I couldn't do it in landmark mode? Let's get A's or nays in the chat. Does anyone want to be blinded again? That's the real question. No. Oh, but I never got to explain to Arco why the flickering in the optics, because my mic was turned off when he said that it was a bug. So I think I'll do it again. So let's go verb 37, enter, 23, enter, verb 25, enter. This will be star 22, enter, no landmark code, enter, and this will be the Earth far horizon, enter. Proceed. Verify BMEG's rate 1, CMC auto. Proceed for auto maneuver request. Okay, 5018, proceed to start that maneuver. And whilst we're in the auto maneuver here, I'm gonna go grab myself a drink, so I'll be right back. Frank Borman probably already lost his cookies at this point. So you're doing some auto maneuvering inside the cockpit. Yeah, that's gross, but true. Although I don't think it was actually this early. Or maybe it was. We'll see. Because we are going to get to a TV broadcast at some point in the Translunar Coast. Okay. Let's go ahead, hit enter, and we'll just mark with that calibration there. Let's go SCS, min imp. And let's get stabilized here. Oh man, that really looks... that looks so gorgeous. I believe we're probably looking at this horizon here. This part of the horizon anyways. Proceed. Alright. Again, epilepsy warning. I'll give you 5 seconds to look away. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, wow. The, actually, the guesstimate on which part of the horizon here couldn't have been, almost couldn't have been more perfect. I'd say that's pretty good. Go ahead and mark it. Proceed. Star 22. Earth Far Horizon. Proceed. Ah, it's just slightly over. It's just a teeny tiny... Actually, wait, hold on. Is it even slightly over? Let's take a look. I'm pretty sure it's just a teeny tiny bit over. Delta R, delta V over 0.05. Nope, actually, it's perfect. This is a perfect mark. Okay. Proceed to incorporate. Oh, we're at 17 hours, 27 minutes. Oh, of course, yeah, they're in the flight plan for that mission. So all you need to do is pull up the flight plan. The flight plan's burn information is just a good enough estimation for when to start a lot of those burns, and then in terms of your TZ, in other words, your 0.05G entry interface time, I get that from the transcript. So honestly, you could take almost anything from the transcript. The only problem with that is if they scrubbed like a mid-course correction, you'll still need to calculate that to see if you personally will be scrubbing that mid-course correction, since this doesn't follow the trajectory exactly. Like, we're not on rails here. We've got real physics going into this, so you'll just need to also have the flight plan open either way. Yeah, anyways, Arco, you'll see that that flickering thing is actually a feature, not a bug. It's supposed to be a mirror, so it's supposed to be like a still image overlaying the two. But because Orbiter's engine is limited, we have to rapidly flicker between the two images as opposed to just having one view with two images overlaid. So that is the reason for the flickering. Yeah, pretty much everything. Pretty much everything. The transcript's gonna have more accurate information. But for things that aren't in the transcript, you'll need the flight plan. The flight plan I always found was good enough, so. Yeah, I always found a flight plan to be quite good. Let's actually see. We're on 0, 1. Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's maintain SCS then. Well, let's stabilize first. And then we'll maintain SCS. Yeah, I do have a couple of tutorials already out for RTCC for Apollo 8. I will be continuing them at some point, but just because of the holidays, we're just gonna do a full Apollo 8 flight, super chill like, for the, you know, celebrating the holidays. Yeah, it looks daunting, but it's really not. Unless you're planning a custom mission, then it can get pretty daunting, but it's really not that daunting. It's pretty fun, actually. Everyone's gonna tell you to do Apollo 15. I personally recommend Apollo 8 RTCC just so that you can get used to how it works. But everyone's gonna say, all the devs are gonna say, but then you don't really learn anything. I'm like, yeah, but you learn the basics. And you can then at least perform one mission without the complicated, like, DOI and PDI planner and all of that, like, managing two separate spacecraft. I don't know. I'm very much a start as simple as possible and build from there kind of person, so I wouldn't recommend Apollo 15 as your first RTCC flight. I would recommend Apollo 8. But that's just me. That is just me. I just don't, like, I had such a hard time in Apollo 11, and I still have such a hard time in Apollo 11 RTCC with getting all those abort pads and all of that. And they're like, oh, well, you don't need to calculate all those abort pads. Just calculate, like, the ones you'll be burning. And I'm like, then what's, like... There's not really, like, any fun then. It's, I don't know. Personally, I think you should learn how to do RTCC with one spacecraft before you attempt it on two. So, that's my opinion. Do any other missions require an azimuth change for launch? Well, all missions have their own azimuths preloaded, so none of them should require an azimuth change. Apollo 12 had a plane change in lunar orbit for some reason. I don't remember the particular reason for that. 66.8 nautical miles at 6910 above the lunar surface. I don't like that. We'll probably be seeing an MCC2 or 3. Most likely a 3, MCC3. But I don't know. I really am not intimately familiar with anything past 12, so 12 had one plane change and then the lunar module ascent. And I think this was testing the LEM's capability to launch out of phase and perform an ascent to match the phase of the CSM as closely as possible. I seem to remember that being some part of the plane change. And then they do a plane change again to go back to the original mission specification. Or maybe it was possibly for like different, it was probably for different landmark acquisitions. I couldn't remember the exact reason. I asked this a long time ago. The second one's just for TI. Yeah, that could be. That could be. Yeah, I don't remember. You'll have to scroll back through the chat to see when I asked that. Okay, let's go ahead and switch around our battery charge here. Battery manifold is probably nowhere even close to needing to be vented, as expected. Okay, let's get battery A on the charge then. Was a custom TLI plus 25 due to loss of comm. It doesn't cover much, but it's at least an introduction that teaches you the basics. Yeah, fair enough. You know, and that day, that technically counts as a custom mission, so you'd have done one before me. You'd have done one well before me. Of course, if I do a custom mission, I'm gonna do like a landing in maybe, I don't know, Tycho or something. I think we are going to skip all these next P23s and everything like that. So, of course, with skipping the P23s, we will not need to do a P52. We could do P52 in PTC, so we may still do it, but just not terminate PTC for that P52. And then we'll just coast straight into that MCC2 decision, just A, in the interest of time, and B, in the interest of I don't want to have to keep, like, having to tell people with epilepsy to look away and then look back for, like, 20,000 times. Yeah, I mean, I personally have never burned an abort pad, so it'd be interesting for someone to do that. I wonder if the high gain antenna moving around does impart some sort of torque on the spacecraft attitude in real life. That'd be interesting to figure out. Okay, O2 purge. With a little light time skipping. Oh yeah, yeah. And you flew Apollo 9, you've completed the hardest MCC supported mission, so congrats to you on that. Yeah, I think we'll still do this P52, but we're definitely not going to terminate PTC. I don't see any point in restarting PTC just for a P52, especially if we're only moving at 0.1 degrees per second. I just don't see any use. Coming up shortly, we do have a TLI plus 35 hours abort pad. We are currently at 22 hours into the mission. So if anyone was wondering, Apollo 8 moves pretty quick if you don't do the P23s. Yep. Apollo 9 gets pretty boring after Lem Jettison, unfortunately. At least Apollo 7 kept it interesting with like a ton of manual IMU powered down SCS maneuvers and backup GDC aligns and manual state vector updates and manual thrust vector control burn, and the alignment with the COAS is really cool. I like that one too. Despite the fact that it's really hard to find them stars. Um, with the COAS and instead of the sextant. But it's still really cool to do all that other stuff. And Apollo 9 is just landmark tracking all the way. So I wonder if 9 is also having the same issue that Apollo 7 used to have, with being pretty boring, and then they'll eventually maybe flush out Apollo 9 and give it the spit shine on the post-LEM activity stuff, but I doubt it because they did just revamp the 9 checklists, and I feel like if they were going to do it, that would have been the time. So I feel like 9 is just a boring mission after the LEM activities are completed, but it's not that bad, since after LEM jettison you're over halfway through the mission anyways, so a little bit over 50%, then it's not too bad. There's a lot of time skipping. Um, the time skipping to landmark ratio is pretty good, so she ends pretty quickly. So it's not too bad. Although I do like the strip photography, and I do like the part where you type in the erasable memory program into the AGC to get it to hold orbit rate automatically. That's a really cool part. Automatic orbit rate is such a nifty feature, and I'm sad they didn't use it more often, because I would straight up use it all the time if it was available. Getting a spacecraft to hold orbit rate manually is about the most annoying damn thing in the world. Under time compression. Going real time, this is probably a lot less of an annoying thing to do. Have we deactivated primary glycol at all? We have, okay. That's right. That's right. I'm just wondering because our PTC here is naturally in Apollo 8 is very wobbly, so I'm worried about the performance of these radiators. Yeah, 9 up to LEM jettison. I could do that over and over and over again. The view out the window in 9 in the LEM is the best LEM views ever. 10, I think 10 is the funnest LEM mission. 9 I think has the best views out the window. Although 9's really close second for being an incredibly fun LEM mission, just with the Doc Dips burn and everything. But let me tell you, 10, where you're flying down, just no auto maneuvers, just manually going at it, getting real close, looking like you're gonna trim the top of the mountains off, because you do get significantly closer to the surface than you would in a descent orbit. Just because they, of course, mimic a little bit of like power descent. And then you get to go really, really high orbit, like super high. I think into like the 120 to 200 nautical mile high, like situation above the moon. It is just really fun. I like that mission. And it's fast. It's fast. You get in, you do the cool stuff, and you get out. You know, it doesn't overstay its welcome like Apollo 8 can tend to do. That's right. We are not going to terminate this PTC. We are going to do the P-52, however. passive tumble control. Pretty much at this point, we're not even using, like, I guess it's still really good thermal control, but we're pretty much just using it as passive attitude stabilization at this point. Which is why I don't really want to break the PTC. They really need to add that zero switch to that 2D view. Oh, I guess they're getting rid of the 2D view soon, but still, that would be a nice quality of life thing. Okay. Fail, 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 then about 50 minutes to a ground track determination. Plus, you forgot the... Oh, yes, thank you for reminding me. I need a loose leaf piece of paper to write down my computations for my landmarks, because otherwise I won't be able to find them again. Yes, the 2D cockpit is being removed at some point. Reason being, it's a bog down on resources. The 2D cockpit actually uses significantly more computing power than the 3D cockpit, and it supports old and mostly broken features that are not going to be supported in future versions of Open Orbiter, just because the code is so ancient. So mid-course correction 2 has been scrubbed. Are we ready for the uplink? Well, I guess we will be omitting this P21 ground track determination, since Mission Control has spat us an update about 15 minutes early for once in its life. Usually I find it being several minutes late. Let's go ahead and accept this uplink. Yeah, so I wonder how they're going to do the sextant in the 3D view, but mostly I'm worried about the alignment optical telescope. Sextant, I can think of a few solutions, but AOT, she's going to be a little difficult. And I believe, if I remember correctly, that was a verb 47, and terminate battery charge. Okay. And not above 1.5 volts. Good there. Verb 37, enter. 21, enter. Proceed. Verb 25, enter. 00069, enter. 00010, enter. And 5 balls. We just did No, we didn't just do a P-52. That was several hours ago now. We were time skipping, so in real life we just did a P-52. We'll do another one. Time is relative. Okay, 61.3 nautical miles. I like that. I like that. That's a really good parasynthion to be at this point. I can see why they made the decision to scrub MCC2. I probably would have made the same decision. Okay, verb 37, enter, 52, enter, verb 22, enter, 3, enter, proceed, proceed. Did the disky keys really click like that? I think so. Since I'm pretty sure the soundbite for this was taken from someone actually typing in the disky. But the sound mostly comes from how hard the astronauts had to push the keys. That is a contributing factor. And how it could only be done with one finger. Okay, still looking good. And GDC wise, service propulsion system check. Yeah, temperature looks great. Helium pressure corresponds to the fuel quantity. Nitrogen bottle A looks good, and it is slightly lower than nitrogen bottle B, as we've done an ignition on bank A only. So they are slightly unbalanced, and that's normal at that point. 4 injector valves closed. Again, I need to update to fix the invisible injector valve indicators. We'll do that eventually. Fuel quantity looks good. Oxidizer unbalanced looks good. Saw that sneaky 2 in there. Hey, I was in a PTC, okay? I don't want none of that sass, okay? I was in a PTC. RCS quantity really good for all the time skipping we've been doing. Let's initiate charge on Bat A. So battery relay bus, circuit breaker Bat A open. DC indicators Bat charger, Bat charge to Bat A. All right. Drifting some more. we've actually perturbed back to the near original PTC attitude, so that's kind of nice. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, omit. Oops. Don't you hate when you accidentally click on the checklist box and then all of a sudden it gets really small? Because you accidentally click just right on the border. Yeah, I hate that too. Did I forget to zero the optics out? Nope, I didn't. Omit. Okay, time skip to the wastewater dump. Yeah, I think we will re-engage this PTC coming up shortly, though. I really want to get near LOI, but it's just the TLC in Apollo 8 is just so slow. There's no rest periods. It's just PTC all the way. Or not PTC, P23 all the way. Alright, wastewater dump. Wide MFD. I don't see any use to the wide MFD. I've never seen it before, but if it's wide, it might be too wide, and then I won't be able to see my glorious cockpit. Is there a reason why you don't completely dump the wastewater to zero? Two reasons I could think of off the top of my head. One is a potential reason of ballast, and the other is the reason of the wastewater is actually used as part of um the primary or also the secondary. The wastewater is used as a part of the glycol evaporation systems. So they did accidentally vent all the way to zero more than a couple times throughout the different missions, but the original thought for writing the procedure this way was that if the fuel cells couldn't keep up with the water production, then there would be no coolant for the evaporators to run properly. So the evaporators run with that water glycol loop, but then they have a direct heat exchange to a pipe containing that wastewater reservoir. That's the water that's actually evaporated off and ejected to space as a means of evaporative cooling. So, with the waste tank completely drained, they thought you would run the risk of having no cooling capability out of your glycol evaporators. Of course, the fuel cells were more than able to keep up with the cooling operation, but then there was also the entry procedures. Like once you ditched the SM, you needed water in there for entry to run your primary and secondary evaporators at the same time. So there's also that reason. So the glycol has a reservoir in case you have like a leak. And that's why the reservoir is bypassed. Like in case you have a leak, you can, if you dump the whole loop on accident, then you can use your secondary radiators over your primary and you still have a reservoir full to fill up that pipe again. But outside of that, the water glycol loop is actually completely closed and isolated loop, so it is not considered a consumable. And you need a consumable to run evaporative cooling, obviously, because you'll be evaporating and ejecting. So that came from the wastewater tank, which comes from the overflow off the potable tank. So when the potable tank hits 100%, it overflows into the waste tank. And that waste tank is what runs the cooling operation on the spacecraft. When we're not in translunar coast, that is. And during translunar coast, we have no need of the glycol evaporator since we are having the capability of using passive thermal control, and there's no atmospheric drag or no mass cons going to be affecting our attitude, and no inconsistent sunlight and mission procedures that would prevent us from using the radiators. So we are pretty much, best equipped to just use PTC, as it's really nice and easy. But of course, if we couldn't PTC, the evaporators were there to help us out. But then the other side of the spacecraft would freeze, so that was also a concern. We're actually going to go ahead and reinitialize this PTC. That's star 44. Sure. Now that we're out of PTC, we can take some good marks. Hopefully get a 5. Or a 5 balls, that is. Not the number 5, that would be terrible. Yeah, 4 balls, 1, that's fine. Let's check the GDC. Let's actually try and fix this up just a wee bit more. No, not at all, Ian. That's what is. James. My channel name. Do you really think I would be bothered by questions about spacecraft? You're fine. answering people's questions is the whole reason this place exists. Like, let's try and really get, like, a seriously good alignment. Yeah, there we go. That is seriously good. That's a great alignment, if I do say so myself. Okay. So far, everything's still looking excellent stream health-wise. We like to see it. Is the moon looking any bigger? No. Okay. Figured as much. Figured as much. Okay, 3440. Let's get a ground track determination in here. Now, it has been a while since we've actually gotten a state vector update. So, let's see these results. I'm a little bit curious. Okay, 61.3 nautical miles. That looks good. And let's configure for PTC. Alright. There's a good attitude here. We'll go ahead and let the spacecraft situate itself. Looks pretty good. We'll go back on SCS. Minimum deadband. And we'll let the spacecraft go ahead and stabilize itself again. Stabilize as much as possible. Looking pretty good there. Okay. Looks like we're not super tumbling, so that's good. Another abort pad. Yeah, it looks, all things considered, decently stable so far. I saw that, yeah. LM5 might be quitting. It's a shame. It's a shame. I really hoped he would finish Apollo 9. And that's a damn shame. But it is what it is. Waiting on the flyby maneuver pad here. Yeah. I just kind of wish that he focused on one mission at a time instead of like spontaneously making one video for a ton of missions and then like maybe completing some and not others. Just because then we'd have like more fully complete missions by this point. But other than that, like his work has always been super good, so. And you know, without the viewership, it's expensive to buy all of that audio and and FOI, all those transcripts and stuff, so. It gets expensive without the viewership that you're looking for to turn that profit, but that's okay because we can live out all of our Apollo missions in NASP. We've got Apollo 9 complete. We've got Skylab is complete except for checklists. But MCC works in Skylab, so all that's good. Yeah, our attitude seems to be really stable this round. A little attitude is a little bit perturbed, just a tiny bit. Just you can really tell when you look at the engine bell. But other than that, it's pretty stable this time around. So I think giving it like 2 minutes on CMC control to really dampen out was a pretty good idea. Yeah. Yeah, God forbid, homemade documentaries ever quits. If that man quits, then it's is Jover. Like that guy is single-handedly holding uh, space flight. Uh, like that, he's single-handedly keeping public affairs for space flight alive. with NSF have gone and only doing like mostly SpaceX stuff. They don't cover pretty much anything else. They pretty much shill for SpaceX the whole time, and Amy's busy writing her book. Um, Amy's busy writing her book, so she's not posting a lot right now. And Scott Manley is playing Reentry at the moment instead of doing what he normally does. So Homemade Documentaries is single-handedly holding up the community right now. I know, and I don't like NSF. I used to, but honestly, they don't cover anything but SpaceX most of the time. So Amy's doing a 2-hour documentary on Apollo 13, then the nuclear program. Yeah, so she's busy. And I think that's gonna be after her book. So she's busy with her book, and then she's busy making those 2-hour documentaries for those. So she's not gonna be posting for a long while. So it's you know, with Lem 5 leaving the scene, it's looking a little absent in terms of the realistic space flight. Of course, there's plenty of people doing like Elite Dangerous, but in terms of realism, there's not many people left. They're all busy or quitting. So it's pretty sad. Yeah, I suppose shorts, but I mean in a more long form content. Like let's be honest, how many of Amy's shorts end up in people's reels? I watch Amy's channel religiously, and none of her stuff ends up in my reels. I actually have to go looking for it, so um yeah. Algorithm does not favor the historians. Yeah, but NSF, yeah, I wish they covered more stuff besides SpaceX all the time. Like there were some really interesting missions that NSF's just skipped over, and whenever they do cover stuff, like they also just always talk constantly through the whole launch, and that gets pretty annoying too. So anytime that I do watch any launches, it's not NSF just because like I get that they have to talk through the whole countdown to keep things interesting, but there comes a point during the launch where like please just give us like a moment of silence to take in. And then if something's important that happens, like oh, you see some glowing from the engine bell or like something explodes, like you could talk about that obviously, but I would like a little bit of just taking in the moment without have your reactions, but the conversation from NSF is just too much. Stay curious lately. I have to look them up. I have to look them up. I don't think that I've watched very many of their videos. They like to grift a lot. NSF. It's NSF has turned into complete shilantism for SpaceX. Nothing against SpaceX, but you can't call yourself NASA spaceflight and cover one person. Yeah, like it's it's really bad. Um, yeah, it's I don't know. I like Everyday Astronaut. but you know, since they're not huge like NSF, they don't have like all those cool gyro mounted cameras with AI tracking and all that jazz. So the video, like sometimes the rocket goes and like they have a hard time tracking the rocket, but I don't know. I still like his commentary style. We will not be terminating this PTC. Of course, nothing's better than the official live streams. Um, so SpaceX actually broadcasts their official stuff on their website now, and it's not something that you need a Twitter account for. So I'll actually tune into like an official SpaceX broadcast since they have the best footage and the best commentary. Um, Obviously, since they've got trained public affairs officers and you know it's their job, but their official live streams are up on their website now. Like you don't need like a Twitter account because I know for a hot minute you couldn't watch a SpaceX launch without a Twitter account because they took it off of YouTube and they were like forcing everyone like, oh, sign up for X, sign up for Twitter, but now like I guess they got pushed into making an actual like just taking the broadcast and slapping it on the web page now, so yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I just want to get to LOI so that next time we can just hop in and we're close to LOI and we can have some real good fun then at that point. So today is sort of the if you will, it's the homework day. You know, not anything super great happening. We'll maybe get an MCC3. If we get an MCC3, I will burn it and that will be the end. If we don't get an MCC3, I will get close to MCC4 and then we'll end. Because MCC4 counts as the LOI day. So I would like those to be paired together if we do that. So I'll see you around. Thanks for stopping by, Abby. Yeah, I too am getting pretty tired of staring at Earth the whole time because Earth's not getting too much smaller and the moon is not getting any bigger, so we're at that point where it's like kind of boring. And I can't do P23 because you know, epilepsy. But it'll be over soon. We're very close. We started at 9 hours, and after only an hour and 47 minutes, we're at, you know, near 60 already, so. 150. There we go. Purge complete. Purge line heater off. Let's get a quick ground track determination. There. Proceed. We don't need to do verb 25 or any of that, so that's already keyed in nicely. We'll proceed on that. $61.3. Good. Orbit remains good. Alright, let's get an MCC3 decision. Oh, Moon does look a little bit bigger now. It's getting there. It's getting there. Let me just make sure. Yep. MCC3 has been scrubbed. Okay. New state vector update. Okay, state vector update's complete. Verb 47. Let's go ahead and terminate battery charge. SPS temperature is actually looking hotter than before. Pressures are good. Fuel's good. On balance is good. Helium valves are good. Injector valves are good. Go all the way. SMRCS is great, because we have not been doing P23s, so obviously we'll be inserting into the moon with damn near a full tank of gas. Battery charge on BATB. Okay. And away we go, and obviously we can't be looking at the moon the whole time since we wouldn't be able to see the spacecraft given the sun angle, so we'll be drifting, looking at the Earth until we get so close to the moon that it's, you know, obviously would be better to look at it. But we are going to pretty much be finishing up here very shortly. Just a couple of additional procedures coming up on a wastewater dump. And then more time skipping. And then, yeah, we're pretty much very close to a mid-course correction for decision then. We're just going to get as close to LOI or as close to that 60-hour mark as physically possible. Okay, wastewater dump. And if you're curious, we should actually be able to see this out the window. With the proper angles here. Or at least we used to. Oh, I guess not. Okay, well, rip. Before I installed this current update, we did actually be able to see it out the window. It's, honestly, it's like a completely random chance on if you can see it out the window or not sometimes. She just doesn't show up, but there's the Earth out the window. So, that's a good sight. Wee. Alright. How's our wastewater dump going? Bring it down to 20-ish%. Looking good. Wastewater dump complete. Another P52 starting up. And then more time skipping right up to about 58 hours. I think we'll include that O2 purging there in the next stream just to give us a buffer procedure between that and an MCC4 decision. Gives people the opportunity to come in before the important stuff starts happening. So we'll ride up to 5130. We'll do our P52. We'll not terminate PTC. Do the P52. And then we'll time skip right up to that O2 purge. And then we'll not do the O2 purge, but we will head out then at that point. Then we just got MCC4 and the rest of everything to LOI. So it's a fast translunar coast here in Apollo 8. Yeah, not as cool as the first stream with the booster and the teal line tracking the booster, and we got to see the venting. And yeah, this one I came into this knowing it would be a little bit more boring, but I can't just not stream the whole Translunar Coast. Otherwise, I'd be accused of teleporting to the moon and fake, like you're not flying with the real computer software. You know those people. We know who we're talking about. They even comment on flight streamers stuff. One of my good friends, flight streamer, is pretty popular. Does MSFS, and they're always like, "Oh, this guy's a fake pilot. He's on autopilot all the time. even though autopilot at cruising altitude is the proper procedure, but he's always like, they don't have any skill. And I'm like, well, no one can say that about me because, well, look at this thing. This is as manual as it gets, so I don't have those types of grifters posting here, but there are the moon landings fake and you're not using the real software kind of people. So I put everything up so that they can see that it's a real trajectory with the real programs running and real calculations being performed. Okay, P-52. Star 2, let's see it. I definitely don't like that mark. Let's do it again. That's a good one. Star 41, let's see it. Not a good mark. Yeah, these can be a little tricky in P50, or excuse me, in PTC. Yeah, a 2, of course, yeah. That's fine. Yeah, there's certainly a little bit of skill for those. Alright, last procedure here. We'll just do one ground track determination and then we'll be done. Alright, 52:38, and about another 30 minutes, so about another 30 seconds, actually, given time dilation here that we've got going on. Let's just sneak ourselves another look at the moon. Is it... Oh, she's definitely bigger, yeah. Sadly, we can't see the spacecraft, though, so... Back to the Earth. We'll get better views of it a little bit later. Yeah, the crew would not be able to see it at this point. Okay, 53:15. Verb 37. Oops, that's verb 34. Verb 37. Enter 00. Enter. Verb 37. Excuse me, my brain was just defaulting to uplink procedures for some reason. We're in P21. Proceed. 69. 10 and 0. Proceed. .7 nautical miles above the moon. Literally perfect targeting here. There will probably be an MCC4 just to raise that a little bit, since we've got another like 13 hours of the moon pull, and we don't want to drop our periapsis below that 60 nautical mile point. So, or our parasynthium, that is. Periapsis would be in reference to the Earth at this point. So we will go ahead and that caps us off. We'll go ahead and do some short time skipping, a couple of hours, and then we'll start heading out. So I'll go ahead and play the intro outro clip, and I'll see you guys around for our potential mid-course correction 4 and lunar orbit insertions. So thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great night / day. I'll see you all around.